I was learning how to write. I was learning the craft.
Well, shit, a lot of these stories would make really good, books.
I actually started with poetry as a kid because I like the rhyming stuff, so I used to write poems and stuff as a kid.
Where I cut my teeth and learned a lot was from reading a bunch of the screenwriting books and then writing a bunch of crappy screenplays.
Ever since I can remember writing, started writing stories.
I think writing becomes like a drug. Like once you start, it's really hard to actually stop yourself.
Instead of going out with your friends, you're inside chasing the dragon of having breakthroughs with stories and characters and finding those perfect lines.
Use the rhythm of the story to, control how the audience sees the story.
And if you just read the words on the page, you're not engaging in it.
You can tell more of a story with a facial expression than you can from a huge word balloon taking up half the panel.
Sometimes as a writer, you wonder what the hell you're doing.
If you ever think that, am I just making, in a Kantian sense, am I just making this up? Am I really alive? Am I really experiencing? Am I just an illusion?
The problem with fiction is reality.
You do not want your reader to feel let down.
I can do this. I think I can do this, but I want to do this.
Like when you give somebody a piece of poetry, and it can be someone who hates poetry, and then they read it, and you see that light hit, and you go, oh, I did it. All right, welcome to another episode of Writing Prose. How's everybody doing?
All good.
Hanging in there.
Good.
Surviving, I suppose.
Y'all are oddly quiet.
No.
Weird.
That won't laugh.
So we are here tonight. Our topic is originality. So we're going to get into if it's even possible to have an original idea anymore. How much you can call inspiration before it turns into just blatant theft, and kind of how you skate those lines and make sure that you don't end up unintentionally pilfering somebody else's work. Basically, what did we say it was? Learning how to steal like
an artist.
Nest robbing.
All right.
Whoa.
So we are going to real quick. We're going to go around the room. Everyone, introduce yourselves and the projects that you are on. Justin, you go right on ahead.
I am the writer and creator of Unstitch, part 1 of 2, which is going to be renamed Chapter 1. It's funded. Go on Indiegogo. We launch on Kickstarter like sometime next week. Go buy it. It's awesome.
It's all magical. Done. And the shit is magical.
That shit is magical.
Yes.
John Prager, maybe, said that.
He did.
And it's for all ages.
Yeah.
It's for all ages.
Magical
that won't
shit
be in the
for all
book.
ages.
No AAT. No AAT in Stitch.
Oh
No.
my gosh. Justin, this is the worst branding we could have ever done for your book. Don't use any of this. All right. Next, we got John Hervey. How you doing, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Doing well. John Hervey. You can find me on Twitter at Beyond Time Inc. My book is Black Tiger, Legacy of Fury. 172 pages of kung fu and whatnot and all that good stuff. The book is shipping now. The soft covers are shipping now, and the hardcovers, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, will be. We'll finish printing on that, and I appreciate everyone that's been supporting.
Oh yeah. Down below him, we have Will, aka I don't even know. They call you everything. Keanu Reeves. What's the other one you get all the time?
Asshole.
Asshole. No, that's just what I call you.
I still say he looks like Rolo. Rolo.
Rolo. Well, who's that? I do not know.
You never watch Vikings, bro?
Ragnar's brother.
You know, I got that from my best friend.
Rolo Lothbrok.
That's really funny. One of my best friends was on the phone with his wife, and he said, "You know who he looks like? This guy from Vikings." And I was like, "Oh, well, whatever." That's funny you should say that.
Yeah.
I am Will. I am the co-writer of Black Flag. My Twitter is What is my Twitter, Shae?
Sula Felix.
Yep, there you go. 3.
It's also in the description.
Yes, that guy. The shit is not. It is magical, but it is also other things that I can't tell you. But magical is definitely one of them.
Magical is one of them.
So, and you do get a sequel to that book. 0.5 for free.
Nice.
So, with every order, and we're the only one in Comicsgate with a McFarlane cover.
Very nice.
There.
Wow. The only one with the Jason Brubaker cover. So ha.
All right.
McFarlane is a step. It's pretty high. It's just kind of besides the case.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what?
You know what? I'm the only one that has
I give
made
him that one.
Turkey's artwork again. Okay, so that's so sad.
What happened? There was like 50 of you speaking at once. What? Distill it down to an insult?
Everything's an insult.
No, it's just top of the line.
Let's keep going.
Thank you.
In the middle, we have Adam. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm good. I'm Adam Lawson. I'm at Failed Superhero on Twitter, and my current graphic novel is The Kill Journal. It's in pre-launch right now. It's a horror story set in the world of revenants and those who have survived their attack. And my graphic novel before that, if you backed it, is called The Eighth, and it's in demand now. And it's a 200-page graphic novel, also hardcover like John's. I beat him in page count. Can't believe that. But I am impressed that he did 178 pages because that's awesome.
And a board game.
And a board game, yes. I'm having a game called Escape the Night, which we raised almost $600,000 on Kickstarter recently. It's a really cool game based on the TV show I write and direct. So you don't get to do that often, where you write a TV show and then you get to make the game. But we did it.
Mm-hmm.
That's insanity.
Yeah.
Below me, we have Luke. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm hanging in there. Life ain't killed me yet.
Thank goodness, right?
I'm Death Metal Hero. You can find me at Death Metal Hero on Twitter and Instagram and the YouTubes. What I've been doing mostly recently has been the sing-along of Doom, where I take some of your favorite radio songs and I mangle them horribly. So hit the like button and hit the bell and come sing along and scream along with me. Plus, I'm doing some art for, this one's a horror anthology, and I'm working on a cyberpunk story with the character I'm using in character products.
Nice. And in the bottom middle, we have Mr. Frankie himself. How are you doing, sir?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm the writer of Through the Woods, a graphic novel, hardcover. I think it's about 98 pages. And also The Ghostly Manor on Howling Hills, which is a children's book. We have 12 issues left, I believe. And then they're gone. Yep, thanks.
Nice.
I got mine recently too. I haven't tore into it yet. I'm looking forward to it. I'm trying to sell one of my friends who has a small child on it too. I was like, just saying, like, Alexander would probably love it. You should probably just go on Indiegogo. And they're like, what's Indiegogo? I'm like, oh gosh, this is gonna be okay. It's a whole thing. Look, I'll take you to a website, just click and give it your information.
Frankie's trailer for his book has ass, but no titty, but you can get something from it.
On Through the Woods.
Yeah, you didn't watch your own trailer?
Make sure it's not the other one.
He was thinking of the kids' book, and you were really confusing him for a second.
In trouble.
He was like, whoa.
That's your guy's problem.
Oh my god.
I just went to watch the trailer, that's all. I didn't even know what the book was about. I was like, oh, what's this?
Okay.
And I, of course, am Shae the Red. I actually have stuff that isn't Red Valkyrie that I get to talk about. So I am the editor for Jason Bascom's Absolute. And holy shit, that book is amazing. I'm so happy for it. It's I seriously can't wait. And I also have been working with Adam on the Kill Journal, and I've got a very small 7-page backstory for Murdy. And I saw ideas going at, hey, Shae and panel, can we get a 6-page preview of what you're writing? That would literally be almost everything I wrote. So no, you cannot. But you can get on the mailing list and then get it when you back. I'm just saying.
I did that today.
Nah.
Signed up.
Thank you, brother. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's a cool thing that Shae's doing. So what I wanted to do with the Kill Journal was make a horror story, but then I wanted to include other amazing writers and artists in the mix, and also to expand on parts of the story that didn't make the graphic novel, right? That didn't make the 88 pages. And so I said, wouldn't it be cool if I could get these little anecdotal stories about the main characters and put it in this dossier section at the end? And so that's what Shae wrote as one of the dossiers about one of the 4 principal characters. So yeah, I'll leave with that.
Yeah, I'm
Everyone,
really
this is
excited.
Sketch. She never jumped up in my lap, but this is my mysterious third kitty.
We never see her.
Never see
Hold
her. She never
on.
comes out
She
during-
doesn't make stream appearances.
No,
Look at
she
how
doesn't.
pretty.
She's my little tortie.
Oh, she's a sweetheart.
By the way, Adam, I'm a big fan of like dossier stuff. Like I think it's cool. I think it's because when I used to watch Transformers, they would do that. They'd be like,
"Oh yeah,
the Constructicons." I'd be like, "Oh, you know."
Yeah,
So I love the whole
that.
dossier thing. Yeah, so like when you kind of give like a little dossier about a character at the back, you're like, "Oh, okay, now I really got to see this person in action."
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's it. You got it. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. Somebody understood. Shae didn't, but I'm glad you did. That was a joke. No, Shae fully got it and did an amazing job. So
No, I'm really excited to see because I just wrote it. I haven't seen any of the artwork or anything from it, so I can't wait to see what the artist does with it because it should be entertaining.
Yeah,
he's awesome. He's a cool guy. His name's I'm gonna butcher his last name, Michael Okaranagashi. He's a Nigerian guy who I've been talking with for the last while, wanting to work with him. He was a really cool artist. So
awesome.
I'm
I
excited.
butchered that last name. I apologize, Michael, if you're out there.
I'm glad I signed up for it.
Billy
I'm
is better than I
scared,
could
but I'm glad I signed up for it.
Hey, John.
Huh?
We'll have a stream party when you read it, and we'll turn all the lights on, and we'll put like Care Bears in the background or something, so you can.
All right, I'm there.
Okay. Not that bear, Justin. Put that bear away. That'll give John nightmares. Real quick before we get started on our topic, we actually had a question straight out the gate from the Green Laser. He says, John, who is your printer? John.
When I'm not muted and talking, it works a little bit better.
Yeah.
I'm actually using a US-based printer out of Arcadia, California, called KAS Design. I've known them for a while, and they do a great job. I mean, if you get the book, I think the card, the paper stock and the printing, it's top notch. And she knows that she has to compete against, international printers. So she does, I think as good a job as you can domestically in terms of the pricing. So I knew that ate into my margin some, but that was just kind of a decision that I made.
Well, that's good of you. And
it's KAC Design. I knew it was some acronym. It's KAC Design in Arcadia.
I think it's cool that you were able to find a US-based printer. I mean, that'll keep things from getting messed up in shipping. Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah.
Knock on wood.
I know.
So straight out the gate, we got Leggy, who we haven't seen in a bit. Leggy's good to have you back, but he comes straight out the gate with a question for the panel. What kind of research do you do to come up with something original?
That actually kind of leads into our topic.
It really, Leggy, that's what he does. Is he reads the topic and then goes, let me find questions that make sense to the topic. And then he types them out.
Yeah, that's our boy. Yeah.
So do any of you guys have anything specific?
I mean, I think that on research, I think there's 3 things about research that really help you so much. I think there's two kinds. There's a couple kinds. First of all, is the research of that just, let's say you're going to do a story about ancient Sumerian myth, and there's an element of that, and so there's the research into regards to this broad understanding of what's happened, so I can know the facts, right? Then there's a second phase of it, and in that story, there's also deals with a lot of bullying, and so it was studying research from actual cases of bullying and seeing, kids that have gone to hospitals and other things. And so you can read both of those. You can kind of swim in the facts, right? Because taking facts isn't stealing, I would say, because they didn't. Those events weren't inspired by an artist; they were real, and so there's maybe that. At least I wouldn't consider that stealing. So I think those two things, researching the facts as much as possible, and seeking inspiration from the facts, really helps maintain the originality in your work, but also is, I think, the most important aspect of the research, because then it helps you realize, here's the real impact. Here's what this was really about. So when you're building emotional through lines, and then maybe there's the next kind of research, which is researching other things like what you're about to do, right? So that you don't go, I have this great idea, guys. It's about this woman who goes into prison, and she's there, and it's a drama about what all the relationships she's dealing with. It's so new. And it's like, that's not new, bro. That's a TV show on Netflix right now that everyone has watched. So, so that you don't just blatantly or come up with, think you're original coming up with a name like Star Wars, So
I think being well read and well versed in the content that you're going to create will help keep that from happening. Well, and at the same time, give you a huge pool of resources to pull little snippets of ideas, like pull little bits, to create something original, something new, Use bits and pieces from everything that you love to put a spin on your personal spin on something that you enjoy,
So, what do you guys worry about if you are well read and you have, like, you've ingested all of these things, maybe, 5, 10, 15 years down the line, unintentionally, like, having an idea that was inspired obviously by something that you had read or seen previously, and unintentionally creating something that is very close to it because you've forgotten, but it's something that you already have ingested? Because I feel like I think for a lot of people, it really depends on your personal, like, experience and how good your memory is. Like, for me, my memory is shit about the specifics of where or when something happened, but what happened and if it felt like an experience. So if I'm reading a book and that book really made me feel an experience, I actually have to focus very hard on the fact that that was a story that I read in this book and not something that somebody told me happened to them. If it's realistic enough, of course. So for, someone like me, I've got to be kind of careful when it comes to that, because I might base stuff off of what I thought was an experience, but it ends up actually being a story or a movie or something that I took in years ago.
Right. Well, I think that's the research that Adam's talking about. You do the research, you go see if there's something like that idea, already out there, Because, I mean, everything
go ahead,
that before.
Yeah, and you figure, I mean, in terms of stories and originality, I mean, I remember the first time I watched The Magnificent Seven, and I was blown away by that movie, and then I got, my friends like, well, you need to watch Kurosawa's, Seven Samurai, and you realize that, like, if you are inspired by something, then, don't be, I mean, honor it. There are, different story arcs that we can tell. Sometimes when you're just taking something as amazing as, like, Seven Samurai and putting it into a different setting, you're making it maybe, whether it's, culturally relevant for the day, or, you can do that in a way that is honoring to the original material, but still original, and I think for all of us, I mean, especially when we're writing things like comics, you're kind of world building, and when you're in the process of world building, you need a framework, and sometimes, that framework may be based upon, something historical. So you may use that as the framework, and then from there you start to riff, you start to create your own things. I think at the end of the day, I mean, what's the difference between originality and plagiarism? With plagiarism, you don't give any credit you know, to where, and that's a very simplified version, but you're giving no credit to your source material. You know, I think all of us, you know, we have inspirations. You know, we all got into even getting into comics. We all got into comics. There was something that you picked up. There's probably a book that each and every one of us could mention. Like, you know, this book, this changed my life. I picked this book up. I picked this comic up. And I knew from that moment on that this was something that I wanted to do. I was fully inspired. And inspiration is a great thing. You know, so I don't know if I even addressed the question at all. So.
I think you did.
I love it when we do that. Go ahead, Frankie.
I had the opposite happen to me. I wrote something, worked on it for over 2 weeks, all hours of the night, and then I saw a movie. And I'm watching the movie, I'm like, holy crap. It was like I never seen that movie before, but if you read what I wrote, you're like, wait, you clearly got influenced by that. And I'm like, impossible, I never saw it. But the genre I'm in, it is limited to certain things, so I can see how.
Right.
But you kind of, I was like, oh crap, do I have to rewrite this? But I don't think so, because again, like John was saying, I put my own stuff into it and build my own world and change characters and stuff. But I was like, whoa, that was pretty close to what I saw. But like, I wrote it before I actually saw a film that was similar to it. And I was like, Jesus. So I got to go back to the drawing board.
When you have an idea, there's a good chance that somebody else across the world has it. Like when you have an idea, it enters the idea space, and you know, once it's there, anybody else can have that idea too.
Yeah.
So sitting on
that's true. That's true. Look, I mean, and that's the thing about it. I've had that many times. I'll go in. I work in television. I write for television as well, and so I'm always pitching at studios, and especially when you go into pitch at Netflix, because they get pitched by everybody on Earth. You know, I remember sitting and talking to my executive there, Nathan, and pitching, and him being like, "Oh no, dude, we already have that in development." What do you mean? Oh yeah, we already have a show, same content. We already got that one. You know, stuff that you've never even thought of, and I think that's an easy thing, right? That there's so much. Especially in the world of comics or anything that's genre type, there's so much already in the zeitgeist, and there's so many other creative people thinking of things, and that's okay. And I think in some ways is, you know, you're checking originality to make sure you don't look like an idiot, you know, on one side, right? Like you're just copying something already done unknowingly, and then you look dumb. But then sometimes you're going to bump into some things, and you accept it and say, this is my contribution to it.
Sure.
It is whatever it is. Yeah.
You know, it's different enough to be different, even though there are similar things. Like, look at how many movies get made at the same time. Like, what was it? Deep Impact and then Armageddon. You know, like
it came out the same year. Even came out the same year.
Like it happens all the time. You know, so I mean, that trying to be original is trying to put a spin on it.
I've even had TV still one of my projects and make it to television. And they changed it enough that it's theirs now. It's original to them. And like, I don't have, you know, I can't sue. I can't go against these guys. How the hell am I supposed to? Whatever, you know, I can come up with all the proof. I mean, it's up to a lawyer. It's up to a judge. And I was at a place in time where I couldn't even fight back.
Right.
Financially speaking. But I've had something that got greenlit. I don't see a dime.
Well, you know, you could always take your original concept, tweak it a bit more so it's even more different and original than theirs, and then run with it, dude. Like, if it was good enough to get greenlit for them, why wouldn't it be good enough to get greenlit?
I know I have the talent because that's proof to me, but again, they failed after a few episodes because I had 75 stories written. They had my first 2, and they had no idea where to go with it, and it just tanked.
Well, see, there you go. All the more reason.
Yeah.
Just want to say welcome to RJ Carter. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Shae. Thanks for having me on here. I've talked with a handful of the people that you got here as comic book creators over at Critical Blast, and this is one of my first attempts getting to be here as RJ Carter writer.
Let's do
it. As a
it.
human, yeah.
Welcome.
Like a real person. I like it. So are you? So you're not working on any book, but you got your YouTube channel.
Well, I have my YouTube channel, which is an offshoot of my website, criticalblast.com, which is an offsite of our publishing arm, where I'm the editor of books like The Devil You Know. But I am writing. I write for Destroyer Books. I'm on the Remo Williams series, writing Warren Murphy, the Destroyer character, right now.
Remo Williams. That's epic.
Nice.
That's epic.
Pop a link to any of your books or anything in the private chat, and I'll update the description so everybody can go check it out for sure.
I'll do that. Thank you.
That's awesome. So I'm trying to think who else has this. I'm like, you guys jumped around, and I had a little bit of a margarita, so I don't remember who said what.
Wow.
Sorry, Justin, you haven't said anything.
All right, so,
Shae invokes the host powers.
Woohoo!
I mean, if you look at Unstitched, you know, like I'm gonna rip a quote from Pablo Picasso. Good artists borrow, great artists steal. Unstitched, definitely you see like where I took stuff from. You know, like I have Toy Story. With like, you know, the bear. I have like some Monsters Inc. Coraline. I openly mention like Coraline, Toy Story, and Rise of the Guardians, because Rise of the Guardians, the main message was like, oh, all the holiday people are heroes and they protect kids and certain things. Well, you know, that was like the aspect that I took from that.
Sure. That was
you know,
fun.
and then like, have you ever heard of the 100th monkey theory?
No.
Oh, if you put enough monkeys together in a room, one of them will eventually come up with Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Pick your.
No, not that one. 100 monkey is like, all right. So one monkey took his fruit and he would dip it in the water to kind of like brush it off, and he would eat it. And then like, you know, another monkey saw, and then like about 100 monkeys did it on one island. And then like another island where like those monkeys weren't there started doing the same. So it's like one of those, any action or idea you have, once like 100 people have it, someone else is going to have it.
It's like group telepathy.
Yeah. As Tony put it, the cultural zeitgeist.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, something that I think is really funny that actually happened to Justin specifically. Justin is putting together his children's book for Unstitched. The whole, if you're going to boil it down to its most basic concept, Unstitched is about a teddy bear who is protecting a little girl, right? So Crystal McGee had this similar idea with The Good Night, where her book is about a teddy bear that's protecting a little boy. And it seems like they would be damn near the same book, with the exception of Crystal's is like a straight up horror that I don't really know that you want your kids to read. And it takes a very different tone and very different avenues as to the motivation of the characters and everything that's happening. And Justin's is something that you could read with your kids, but again, a very different tone, very different motivations. So while on the surface level they look the same, they're almost two sides of the same kind of idea. So they're both very original, but it was interesting because they both ended up hitting at about the same time. And it was just one of those, like, it was a good idea. And it was such a good idea that multiple people had them, and two people within the same community were like, no, I'm going to make this. But they're not, you know what I mean? Like, they're not, nobody copied anybody.
The
I'm talking to a third guy who's doing the same thing.
Yeah, I didn't even know, but a couple of weeks back, Peter Samedi was like, oh yeah, at Altena, like a couple years back, we had a book kind of like that, and he showed me like a teddy bear going under the bed, and I was like, yep.
But that's the thing, is if you want to boil it down to human experience, everybody remembers being a kid, everybody remembers having some kind of a teddy bear, and everybody remembers how creepy your bedroom got at night with all the lights off. Like, whether you were scared or not, when you were sat in bed as a toddler and all the lights went off, everything in your room suddenly came to life and was like something was probably going to try and kill you. So you'd hug a stuffed animal a little bit closer.
One of my favorite directors, Quentin Tarantino, he'll openly be like, yeah, this movie I did, these are the 5 movies I took inspiration from. And I did like this from this, from this, from this, this from this. I did like a little homage of this. But yeah, honestly, there's not quite anything really original. It's taking 1, 2, 10 different things, put it in a blender, and you add your own little spice and flavor to it because your voice is your voice. It's going to be different no matter what.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up too.
Yeah, so if you ever got an idea for something, don't sit around and stew on it for too long, because if you do, pretty soon you will see your idea taken by somebody else come out. I mean, if I were to tell you about this great book series I read about a bespectacled young kid who learns that he's got the potential for magic and then goes through training, am I talking about Harry Potter or am I talking about Tim Hunter?
Well, we think you're talking about Harry Potter.
Exactly, but they both came out around the same time. In fact, Tim Hunter came first.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It was a Vertigo book, right?
Yeah. Books of Magic.
Mm-hmm. Books of Magic.
Neil Gaiman's.
Vertigo was fucking good.
Real quick before I lose it, Unhinged, thank you for the $2 for margarita money. He earmarks every time he does a super chat. He earmarks what I'm supposed to use it for, and I won't see these for 3 or 4 months. So I'm gonna have to start making a list of all of it. I think he gave me $10 so I could get a gym membership.
Yep.
So
whoa, that's a little intense.
It's fine. In context, it doesn't sound as mean as it does out of context, which is why I totally said it out of context because it's funnier.
Gym membership. You're just gonna get a workout.
Oh, you guys are funny. Yeah, no, and that's probably. So I guess here is a question that I have, because this is something that I'm coming through, is I've got 2 or 3 really good ideas that I really want to see come to fruition. Right. The problem is on top of my editing, flatting, cosplay, streaming, and being full-time military, time is a little bit difficult to manage on top of, going through some fun life stuff and some fun health stuff. So how do you guys get past that when you don't have enough time to do the things that you really want to do? How do you manage how you're going to come about, which projects you're going to do first, and I guess carving out and creating time for them that otherwise doesn't really exist? Go ahead, Justin.
Talk, dude.
Budget.
But budget.
Budget. I went through this because I'm like, oh, do I do the second chapter of Unstitched, or do I do my superhero comic, which is a lot shorter and I can get done faster? I don't have money to do both at the same time.
Right. So that is.
I think part of it is also, like Justin said, I mean, once figuring out what project you're going to work on next, and just, whether it's even if it's in short increments, just making sure that you're being consistent, because the time goes one way or the other.
Totally.
And that's the thing that you find. You can find yourself paralyzed for a year, and you're like, man, I was in this paralysis for the last year, worried about whether I was going to do project A or project B, and I got neither of them down the road. So I think the main thing is saying, okay, well, let me at least start, in the part that you can control. Start with your brainstorming, start with your writing, get your ideas formulated, and then probably one project you'll really start gravitating to, and to feeling like, what, I think I can put a cap on this one. I really feel like I know where the story arc for this one is going. Well, then that's great. Then now you have something that you can start putting the pieces together, getting your team together, getting your artists, and just doing it bit by bit, piece by piece. It sounds like that can sound very unfulfilling, but you know what? We're already, Tuesday is September of 2020?
Yeah.
I mean, time is not slowing down. So you might as well just take your little bits, your little bites, and the next thing you know, hey man, it's January 2021 and I've got some stuff. You know,
you just gave me a bunch of heartburn.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
No, I think John, you said it great, because I think for myself, when I'm essentially balancing also TV and comics, there's the question of is, because in the world of a writer, there's somebody else who's going to do the work, right? If I'm writing a TV show, a studio then has to greenlight it, right? If I'm writing a comic book, I got to write it and I got to pass it to an artist. There's actually somebody is going to take a lot more time with your story than you are in the mix. And so I always try to think, how can I get this project done and then pass it to that person who's going to need to spend 3 months on it, the artist, the studio, whatever it is, right? And so that I can then get back to my task. And and unfinished stories are worth nothing, right? They have no value.
That's
right?
true.
That's the odd thing about like an unfinished.
I've got a lot of no value over here.
It's worth $0.00, right? Even written by William Goldman, his unfinished scripts are worth $0.00, and his finished ones are worth 1.7 million, right? So the most important thing is to finish it so that you can get moved to someone else, right? And then and to shut out all the other projects while you finish that one thing, so that way then it can actually move. At least that's how I try to see it, right? And then because once I've got a finished copy of issue 1, the artist can work. Then I got to get this script delivered to wherever. Let me get this finished and then pass it over to my executive, who's going to take a month to read it anyways, because that's just how they go, right?
Right.
And then you can be throwing the ball to the next person who has to do the work. I think is oftentimes the way to think about it, and to not forget how much more time the other people in the mix are going to take than you, right? They're just going to take. They're going to take so much more time than you.
Yeah. Well, I'm also a picky control freak, so I need to get over myself, I guess. It's probably a good way to put it.
Well, to John's point about, when figuring out which one you're going to be inspired for, one of the things that Warren Murphy did say, I'm going to reference Warren Murphy a lot when I talk, because, he's the guy I'm taking the mantle from sometimes. If you're waiting for inspiration, you're not a writer, you're a waiter. So might as well, put some food on the table for other people. But as far as, budgeting your time, even if you're not inspired, pull the page up, commit to a word amount. I mean, the usual budget is 1,000 words a day. Butt in chair, fingers on keyboards, 1,000 words done. They don't have to be good words. That will come in time. Just even if you're just writing and then to get the flow of things going. And eventually along the way, something's going to click and you're going to say, that's my story. And then you can take all those and thens and make them a little bit more florid, a little more flowery, a little bit more sensible. But you didn't just sit there and wait for the words to appear from the story fairy.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So that's I know that, and I've talked about this a little bit on here, but I've got my series that I was wanting to do that all kind of focuses on various mental health issues. And I think one of my biggest deterrents from actually starting any of that is because, to me, it's so important that it is handled properly, because I don't want to make light of anybody's affliction or what somebody's going through. But I do want to make sure that I'm bringing it to light, and I want to make sure that people are getting the right message from it. And I think what I've done is I've now created such an epic weight on my shoulders that starting at all is almost impossible. But when I sat down to write for Adam, and he goes, this is the basic guideline of what you're writing. And he's like, ready to go. And I was like, okay, cool. So I sat down and I wrote a little bit, and then I sent it off, and he was like, okay, cool, refine it. And I was like, all right. And I wrote a little bit more and sent it off. And then he was like, okay, now I really need you to detail it out. And I was like, okay, I can do that. I sat down for 3 hours and just read over it and went, yep, I don't like this. This is better. I don't like this. This is better. And by the time we were done, he had 3 changes that I needed to make. And it was literally just, yeah, those words suck. I'm just deleting them.
Rewriting something is really the hardest part, especially if you're doing it the first time. And what I mean by that is, a lot of people will sit down and they're going to write their story, but they're not going to start writing their story. They're going to finish their story in their head. They want to know the entire thing of it before they commit the first word. Well, what happens is once you know how the whole thing goes and it's time to sit down, your brain is in a position where it's like, we've already done this. Why are we doing it again? And that's a real impediment to getting words on paper. Whereas if you are writing it as you're thinking it, you don't have to know how it's going to end. You just, well, maybe you know how it's going to end. You just don't know how you're going to get there, what turns you're going to take. Right. But do it on the paper as you're thinking it, because rewriting it when it's already on the paper is a whole lot easier than rewriting it when there's nothing in front of you because it's all in your head.
That's true. That's true. And that is definitely exactly where my roadblock is right now. Because I'm like, yeah, I know what it's supposed to do, but I have a blank paper that's just blinking at me. And I'm like, I don't know where to start. Like, shit. I just need to start writing.
Yeah, you know, you gotta liberate yourself. I mean, writing is a process of a continual rewriting. Don't think that what you need to, it's rewriting and editing. Don't feel like what you need to put down initially is gold. Just write it. Just put it down, and then you've got the clay. Then you can start molding it. And you can start doing the things that you want to with it. And sometimes that's the best jumping on point, because once you've got something down, now you got something to work with. Like, okay, now I can see what I don't. Okay, that part doesn't work.
Right.
Let me go, and then you can start. And then, especially with worlds start to develop. They start to develop as you write. Then you start to realize things about, even in your world you have a mythos or something to your world. You start to figure these things out, and the world starts to populate. The people start to develop their own respective characters, but it's just out of the process of letting it germinate, let it develop, and you'll be able to clean it up later.
Like a flow.
Well, so you guys let me know if this is something that you go through. I have a hard time writing when it's just me. Like, me in a quiet room is like a fucking death sentence. Like, I have the worst time writing. And so that's like I said, when Adam asked me to write, one of the best things was I wrote a little bit and I was like, that's garbage, but it's the basic idea of what I want. And then I sent it off and I was like, tell me how much it sucks. Like, I need the feedback so I can refine it. And when it's just me sitting in a room, like, I have to have an editor. I edit for other people, but if I don't have my own editor, I will never produce, because I will just stay stuck in my head. Yeah. Like, somebody just said, make sure that you have an outline. I do. That's the problem. I have an outline and then I go to write it and I'm like,
don't worry yourself to it. Don't marry your outline.
I think
that's terrible.
I think maybe don't you think that some ways, there is, there's an outline, which is just a way to help construct the thoughts that become your story, right? Because outlines no one reads it. It's just you. I guess maybe a network executive reads it, or maybe an artist might read it to get a sense of things, but no audience ever reads it, right? So it's not actually writing. It's not actually just what it is. And so I think one of the things that's great about an outline of sorts is that they help you have something to fall back on when you start to sputter with where your story is going, or to gut check where you're doing it. Because I often feel like the real secret to success, at least for myself, with getting a story through, is what's the elevator pitch on my story, and then trying to remind myself of that continually as I'm writing, right? Because I think once it ever leaves what your 2-sentence pitch is, you've lost what your story is, right, along the way. Now it can get more complicated, things can get added, but and I think that maybe that's the more important than the outline, in the sense that how you want this to end, or where you want it to go. But if you can hold on to your 1-sentence pitch and then just start writing and swinging fists, things start to materialize. I think Will has talked about this before too, and I think I like this about his brain, is that something is going to happen organically along the way. It's going to start to create pieces of itself, and that, like, really going through with your one pitch and then driving it forward and seeing what gets made.
Yeah, your elevator pitch is like planning a trip to California from St. Louis. Your elevator pitch is, I want to take a 2-week road trip and see the ocean and walk in the sand. And then your summary is going to be like, I'm going to stop in Kansas City. I'm going to take 64 through Nevada. But then when you sit down and write, it's going to be more like, oh, look, there's a great big ball of string over here. I want to see that. I've never seen that before. So you take a side trip. And then you find fudge factories. And then you get a flat tire and there's a detour.
Oh, I got those stories. Will, you've been half characteristically and half uncharacteristically quiet.
So, what's the question?
Yeah.
Just anything. Are you okay, Adam?
I'm watching Adam fight something.
Yeah, it was my dog just came in the door from being walked and just kind of like plowed into me, and they just needed to be kind of played with a second. So I guess
I was like,
yeah,
I don't know what's happening there. Is he like a bee or something? Or
yeah.
Now we need to hear from Rolo. Rolo,
yeah, we need
give us some wisdom.
Any of your comments on originality?
You need it 1 second.
Bobby.
Fish up, puppy.
Okay. So, are we talking about writing process now, or are we talking about originality? Which one?
Originality is what we're mostly trying to talk about. The writing process was my horrible aside.
I mean, I don't really have a very articulate idea about originality. I think that stories, like anything else, are forms. They exist outside of your mind somewhere, and they come into it through reason. Because we like to tell ourselves the same stories over and over again, not because we're not originals, because we like these stories. The same, like whether it's Gilgamesh, trying to conquer death, or it's Jesus Christ. I mean, that's not a story that happened in history, but in terms of the cyclic resurrection of things, the unknown. I mean, all of that stuff is a form. It's going to come. Two people are going to have an idea of the same form at the same time. But I think the question is, what matter do you clothe it in, right? And that's what Quentin Tarantino does well, as Justin said, is that he gets these bunches of forms that are all out there, passes through his brain, and then his mastery is being able to use, let's say, a novel storytelling approach in order to clothe it in a matter that looks novel. I think we have to differentiate between original and novel, because nothing's really original. We've seen these stories over and over again. We've seen a plot over and over and over and over again. You're not going to tell an original plot. Sorry, guys.
Technically,
but you can
5 stories out there, buddy.
Right. You can tell a novel plot, though, because maybe that's gone out of fashion. People haven't talked about it in 20 years, 10 years, 5 years. No one, because like you said, the zeitgeist is like, well, we don't want to tell a Bible story. So suddenly you tell a Bible story, everyone thinks you just came up with a Bible story. No, it's been there since the beginning of time. It's just out of fashion because everybody wants to talk about, I don't know, sexual liberation. So all the stories about sexual liberation are being told, and they're getting played out as we're seeing in the Marvel movies because they're boring. You know what I mean? Because all we're talking about is the same things over and over again. And then someone comes along as a breath of fresh air, talks about Gilgamesh and goes, wow, you came up with something new. No, you just fuckers haven't talked about it in a while.
That's true. I think the originality kind of depends on the collective memory of the people around, because there's a lot of people that think that, especially, and I think that this is, we hit the generations, like you have the older generations that are like, oh, everything sucks, there's nothing original anymore, all you guys think that you've got all these original ideas, and we did that when I was a teenager and whatever. But because the younger generations haven't been exposed, because most of us don't go back and check out older stuff, you haven't been exposed to a lot of those storylines. So when you come up with it, you think it's new, you think it's original.
But also, I think
doing your own.
Going back to the forms idea, and not to get too Aristotelian on it, but you can get somewhat of an originality through composites, right? So you could take a piece of this from history, a piece of this from Peter David, a piece of this from Steven Spielberg, click it together like in the Matrix, and suddenly you've got something new. That is, if you break it down to the sum of its parts, it's not. But if you put it together, it's a wholly new organism composed of unoriginal parts. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think you can do that. You can create really novel composites.
It's almost like kit bashing.
Yes.
If you're going to talk about. Yeah. So it's essentially storytelling to keep originality nowadays is kit bashing for writers.
Right. So if you look at the Matrix, you've got John Woo, You've got Jackie Chan, Wire Work, Wire Fu that we've all seen, and John Woo action we've all seen. But you also got anime in there. You've got Buddhism. You've got Hegelianism. You've got Descartes. You know what I mean? You've got social justice. You've got gender fluidity. And you mash that all together. And you got goth, even the goth subculture in there. You got Terminator. Because that's an old idea. The machines take over, right? Goes all the way back to Metropolis. That's not a new idea of Frankenstein taking control of its creator, right? That's old. But now that we have all these elements, the more composites you have, the more the unoriginal parts blur into the composite.
Yeah.
I think.
No,
I think you're right.
That's fair. Real quick, Drew, aka Mr. E, thank you, sir, for the $2. He says, "Yay for super chats." I agree, sir. Super chats make me happy. Anyway, so that's something that I think that a lot of people need to kind of realize is it's not bad to be inspired by something else. It is bad to take something basically verbatim and try to pass it off as something new, or like what people are doing now in a lot of these mainstream comics where they're taking established characters with established storylines and established everything, and they're calling it something new because they're just throwing caution to the wind and doing whatever they want with all of those characters. That's not being original. That's really just kind of being a dickhead to somebody else's IP and trying to capitalize.
I think Alan Moore said it best, that you're just squatting on the cultural stage, right? I think that is ironic, right? That, that it is easy to do, it happens to his work often. And it's funny that he quoted that long before his work would then get tried to be made by HBO or Zack Snyder or whoever came along, right? And none of which he ever agreed with, and none of those creatives he ever liked. So ironically, but that's what they would do, right? And they would clickbait you, right? With like, "Hi, where it's called Watchmen, the TV show," but then it's not his book, but they're trying to take this word and name, which you have emotions tied into, and use that to motivate you to come in and watch their other thing that is not his thing. Yes.
That's true.
But I think I like what you're saying, though, about the forms and the compositing of these forms. It is part of the key of your originality, right? And as part of the way of also making it feel fresh and new, because like you're saying, there's no new stories. I think that maybe one of the most exciting ways to think about a story as a writer is to think, I often think about, what's the personal aspect of that means to me, and then what is the supernatural side. Hey, Drew, that I agree. Same thing with race and gender swapping. It's like, did you really come up with something new just because you changed from guys to girls? Probably not. But like the layering of that composite. When you're thinking designing of your story, you're just remaking an 80s action film or an 80s action story, or what's the other layer or two that you can add to make it fresh once again. And so maybe that's the best way to fight it as a writer, right, in advance. When you jump into a story, is what is that I can layer on top of it. But also the key is to make it, any compositor knows, adding a composite layer that makes what's beneath it more exciting and believable and new, not something that competes with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you could add a composite that confuses or distorts your story versus making it kind of fresh.
Like if you're gonna look into the world of like fan novels and things like that, where people are taking established worlds and established creators, but they're putting them in their own scenarios, or they're having them react differently to already established storylines, which to me asks the question for all of you guys here: do you consider fan fiction to be original writing, or is fan fiction kind of just pilfering what was already there?
It depends. It depends. I mean, if you're rewriting a story that you just read and you're rewriting it in a prose format and trying to pass it off, then no, definitely not. But if you're just like, I'll go back to Destroyer. I got picked up by Destroyer Books because they did a fan anthology, and I had just recently discovered the character, and was learning the different people in it. And I saw parallels with other things I had read. So when they asked for stories for more blood, I submitted this heavily de-trademarked fanfic, for lack of a better term, of the Destroyer characters visiting a murder scene in a very gothic city that was overseen by a guy who dresses like Dracula to exact vigilante justice. And they bought on the book, and they thought I had the voice right, and it got me a deal. So in that case, fan fiction was real writing. It's good exercise if you don't have anything yet that you want to work on or that you're going to work on. Write with what you know. Just tell stories with characters you already know. Make them original stories.
Well, and also, Shae, I got to ask you, is The Walking Dead George Romero fan fiction? I mean, it's the exact same rules. Nothing's different. Even the unexplained nature of why people are getting up.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I guess there's a way to look at it, is that it's not original in the sense of, there's zombies walking around, there's rules, they get shot in the head, you get bit, you die. If you die, you get up. I guess the originality there comes with there hasn't been something that has the breadth of The Walking Dead, which is, okay, you get out of the building, the zombies are sieging you, what happens the next day? I guess you could say that's the original part of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That no one's done that, where what's life like over the breadth of the entire apocalypse from beginning to end? No one's done that. So I guess you could say that's where the originality can come into essentially fan fiction. Because that's what it is.
Sure.
And I think, in terms of originality, I mean, we like to see, at least I like to see genres that are well done. That's the reason why I watch Tarantino movies. He's not doing anything that hasn't, in terms of genre. I'm like, okay, if he's going to make a cowboy movie, he's going to be true to it. And he's going to make a really good cowboy movie. He's going to make a kung fu movie or a kung fu, two-part movie. He's going to try and be true to the genre, but he's going to try and add something else to it, and that's writing. And and he's not. It's not like, wow, I'd never seen this genre before. It's like, no, I'm on board because I think you're going to do this genre well. And in fact, I think you're going to riff off some things that I think are cool. I'm like, oh man, when you put Sonny Chiba in that movie, I was excited. That just made me say, like, even better, man. I mean, honor that guy. He's awesome. And I used to watch his movies back in the day. So I mean, it's like there are ways, to, I think, kind of elevate, take a genre and do something special. And you're not disrespecting the genre, and you're not acting like you just created this out of thin air.
And it's funny that someone mentions The Hateful Eight. That's a good example of a composite movie where you've got Agatha Christie, you've got Sergio Leone, and then you've got The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you think about that movie's plot, it's basically The Thing. So
totally is too. Yep.
And you mash those together, and you've got something kind of interesting, right? Oh, wait a minute! What if I make a cowboy movie that is basically the plot of The Thing, without the monster? That's kind of cool. I like that. People trapped in a cabin who don't trust each other. They can't leave because there's a snowstorm outside, and who's who and who's doing what and who's subverting who.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one way to do it.
So this question came up back when we were talking about process, and I wanted to make sure I didn't lose it. So Tony says, before I write, I see the story's events, maybe not in totality, but in fragments, and I start writing almost as a journalist would, as in documenting. Does anyone else approach writing in this manner?
Me and Frege, basically.
I was gonna say, that does sound really similar to how you and Dan work. Well,
Frege will come in, and we borrowed a Stanley Kubrick writing term, which is we have something we call non-submersible units, where he's like, there's going to be these 7 events that are badass, and they're non-negotiable, and they're going to be awesome, and they make sense. Now let's make them make sense. And then my job is to kind of look, basically they're peaks, and then I have to flood the valleys with water. And then he goes, "Oh, I like that water. It's nice and cool. That's kind of got a lot of shit in it, though. You need to clean that up." that's not
That water
quite high
got real
enough.
polluted.
Right, that was not quite high enough, and that's what he's kind of doing. It's a lot of back and forth. So it's more like trying to read his mind. Because he wants those units, and they're going to stay there. They're not moving.
Right. Anybody else? Frankie, you've been quiet.
Well, I think with originality, you have to go imagination based, because I think there's inspirational based and imagination based. And if you have a really good imagination, I think that's the only way you're going to come up with something really, truly original. But like, again, if there's a genre, Western is kind of limited. But if you go supernatural, doors open to anything that comes into your head, I think. And as far as Hateful Eight goes, to me, I did not like that film compared with his other ones. There's other ones that I like, because seeing that movie, I don't know if you guys have seen Cutthroat 9.
Yes.
But for me, it's complete. To me, it's a copy. It's an absolute copy. It really is. I mean, I don't think there's anything original about that. I mean, Django Unchained, I think, was more original, but that was Hateful Eight's heavily inspired by Cutthroat 9, which a lot of people probably haven't seen.
Heavily inspired.
What's that?
Everything Clint does is like that. He just the composite. You can't see the scenes in a lot of other films.
Well, that movie specifically, I think, was really close. Like, I know Inglourious Basterds, like Dirty Dozen, which I saw, which I could see the big differences in it. That one, though, I was like too close. You know what I mean, to the club.
Was it his homage to it? I haven't seen either. So
you'd have to ask him. I mean, but I mean, I saw all his other movies. I like him, Reservoir Dogs and all that. I mean, that was pretty. Again, I enjoyed all of his films, but that one in particular was like too close to a movie that was already done. You know?
Right.
But
I like this. Oh, sorry, Shae, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was saying, I think I like this sense of originality. I think coming from the imagination, I think for myself, this is just my process, is I don't, even though I went to journalism school, I think I approach it, where I try to get as distraction free as possible, in the sense that I usually take a bike ride to a park with a notebook and with my phone off, and I begin to craft what are the pieces, the skeleton of it, one-line sentences that are what I'm making, right? And start to make my own chemistry experiment, if you will. And as certain lines contradict each other, and so maybe you cross one of those out, and you're building this equation, if you will, and until you realize, I have the mathematical equation of my story. It's this plus this plus this plus this equals this. And it exists, just with my hand and paper, so that I don't I'm away from a computer, so that there is nothing to distract, just the sort of the free flow, at least for myself. And then once the equation is built, and then I can truly feel like it's my own, right? Because it was built without anyone else's thoughts, yet it's sort of infused into it. And then you start to add the research or other pieces that flesh it out.
Real quick, Gelth Walker, thank you very much for the $2. Shae, show your hand turkey. I owe Gelth a drop bear hand turkey.
Gelth, dude, I have been waiting for you. I have the drop bear.
There you go. Look.
I was searching around for you. I was like, I looked at you on Twitter. I'm like, dude, where is Gelth? Okay,
Gelth
so
is
here it
not
is.
on Twitter.
I know. So I've got this here. I'm going to get this link here, and I've got this. Shae, I'm going to send this to you. Gelth, how do I get this to you?
Just
I've got it.
Chat.
Okay, gotcha.
Well, is it something that everyone can see, or do I need?
Oh, it's totally something everyone can see. No,
okay.
Actually, something else can see. But like, I even had my artist commission him to do it, so I paid him to get it done. Because I'm like, I owe this guy this thing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. This is the real deal. So,
I owe a lot of hand turkeys because I stopped doing it. stop doing them. I apologize. If I owe you a hand turkey besides Gelth, because Gelth just reminded me. If I owe you a hand turkey, DM me on Twitter because I'm gonna forget otherwise.
I'm almost done with your hand turkey. Because apparently I owe Gil a hand turkey.
Also, I've got Justin is probably going to be dropping out pretty soon. He's got to run and take care of some stuff. So if he doesn't come back before he drops, make sure you go back on Stitch. There should be one bear left. It glows in the dark. It's pretty badass. Please make sure you go and back that. You good, Justin?
Yeah.
Somebody take that last bear away from him.
Please. He's just going to keep tormenting us with it. So make sure you go back on Stitch. Thank you, Justin, for coming and hanging out. We appreciate you, man.
Take care.
See ya.
Take care, Justin.
See you, Justin.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting myself.
Well, in terms of good places to steal from, I mean, I don't really like reading a lot of fiction anymore. So I steal a lot from history because to me, it's the most absurd thing you can find. And it gives you an idea. It gives you realistic things to copy because it happened and people are capable of it. And so, like, I'll give you an example. I was reading a couple of books on Uganda and Idi Amin. Just I felt like reading about Idi Amin one day. And I was like, oh, and I was reading about his tribe, his personality, even his markings on his body. And I'm like, I am going to use that for Colosseum. There's a group of people in there that I want to like imitate his Southern Sudanese tribe. I'm like, I'm going to use their template, because it was, it was basically a group of thugs he comes from. And I was like, these guys are interesting. I like them. I like their heraldry and what they do to themselves. And nobody reads history because no one bothers with it. So why not?
Yeah. So you're free to pillage.
Yeah, no one I get it because nobody reads history. Everyone thinks everything happened today.
My favorite pieces of history to work with are the days that get skipped over, because anything could have happened between those 2 days, or the things that are only mentioned like in a sentence. For instance, you talked about the resurrection stories earlier on. Do you recall what happened in Matthew 3 days after the crucifixion of Jesus Christ?
Right.
Everyone knows Jesus rose from the dead. Nobody pays attention to the verse that said, and there were others who came out of the grave that day.
What's their story? Yep.
Who were these people? Why are they walking around? How are they responded to?
Or even in Genesis, when they says in the Greek, that even though God is Elohim, he was holding court over other Elohim.
Yeah.
Things like that, like, oh, wait a minute, what other Elohim?
Well, it gives, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. What does that mean? Who are the other kings, lords?
Exactly.
I
remember when I found that in a Bible study class, like, wait a minute, who are these other guys that he's holding in judgment of? who are these other ones that have the same name etymologically as God? That's interesting stuff. Because then your imagination go in all different directions.
He was just Dr. Manhattaning and just making multiples of himself.
Or they were of an essence, of a similar essence. And he's just the greatest of all.
Totally.
There's a lot you can do with what wasn't said in history.
Yeah, but I think it gives you a good benchmark, to map out human action, especially when it's stuff you have no experience with, right? Because our imagination get the best of us sometimes, and we can go off in weird gonzo directions, and that could always be fun sometimes. But I think it's much more interesting to see if you can clothe that stuff in other things. Like a tactic I use for originality, if I'm trying to get original, is to pick a character to embody a philosophy. So in the one I'm doing for Incredible next year, there's a character in there who's essentially Percy Shelley. And I said, he's going to be this kind of satanic character, but he's basically Percy Shelley. So everything that guy, the French Revolution, Rousseau, all that stuff, it's in the way he acts and it's in his motivations. Now, I didn't that's internal, right? That can be something I stole, but you're not going to see it. It's what motivates him. So his actions will be original in the story, but not his motivations.
Right.
Sure.
But you guys will see that part.
I back it.
No, definitely, and I also kind of ascribe to the use of history. I mean, even in Black Tiger, as the story will further unfold. I mean, I used elements from real history, like a character that's similar to Wong Fei Hong, who is not just a martial artist in the early 1900s, but also, he was worked with medicine, and he had like some amazing and outrageous adventures. And then you can take these historical characters, and but you can. It's almost like what it is. It's almost like a milestone, or almost like I'm not getting the right word for it, but just kind of like this is almost a marker for me. And like as I kind of go from my points of fiction, I have these points in history that are markers. And will he be referred to as such? Probably not. But what it does is it gives me reference. Exactly. Yeah. Thanks, bro.
Yeah. So it gives you a way so you don't get lost.
There you go. Exactly.
And I think somebody said something. What did he say? That is related to what you just said. It comes from people trying way too hard to be original to the point it makes no sense. It's not necessarily trying to be original. It's more like if you're reading, say, philosophy, and you find these ideas interesting, other than writing a book on philosophy or exegesis, you can't really talk about it unless you embody it in the character, right? Then you get to talk about it in your story. Then it's dramatic. You know what I mean? So if you come across something like John just said, like that you find very fascinating in history, it's not necessarily that you're trying to make something original, it's that you want to talk about it in another medium.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think when people, the whole like trying way too hard, I think a lot of people are so concerned about trying to leave their mark, especially when it comes to feeling like you're a successful writer. You want to be like the next big, I don't even know, like the next big like thing that's, made it through writing, and you want everyone to talk about your shit for years to come. And so people get so focused on trying to do something that's going to make them that they completely forget about you. You make that by being a good storyteller, by telling a story that engages people, not by trying to shock them into talking about you for years. It's kind of like that idea
that been written.
Right. Well, and it gets into that idea that like there's no such thing as bad publicity. That's 1,000% wrong. There's so much bad publicity out there that will completely tank you in your reputation. So trying to constantly like shock and awe people is the wrong way to go about your writing. It's not going to give you the effect you're hoping for. It's going to give the opposite word stuff because of that.
Well, I mean, I think unfortunately, even in comics, I mean, I think that's something that the big two have fallen prey to. I mean, you look at a lot of the stories that were some of the seminal stories. They naturally came out of the storytelling that was, whether you're looking at Electra's death, or whatever. I mean, these were things that were a natural part of the flow of stories that were being told. Mm-hmm. But now stories are being told. Everything has to be epic. Everything has to be an event. There's not a natural character development. There's not a natural flow to stories. And then something happens within the natural flow of the story, and you're like, okay, I'm never going to forget that. I remember where I was when I picked up that comic book.
Yes.
I remember where I was when I read that. I remember how I felt. I still feel that way today if I think about that. Because you have a body of work where you've almost kind of developed a relationship with these characters, and it's not just event-based. It's actually, you've developed something there. And then all of a sudden something happens, you're just like, oh my goodness. This wasn't just for the sake of this one event. And that's right. The reason why even I remember the first DC Crisis. It's like that was such a powerful story because that was not an event for the sake of an event. I mean, they were taking you know, the things that were happening to characters, whether it was Supergirl or to Barry Allen. I mean, it's like you had this history, you know, and it wasn't just an event thing that was going to be erased later. I mean, I read those issues, and I was just like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm like, oh my goodness, you know. But that's because I already had developed a relationship reading these stories before. You know, the stories can't just be events about characters that you don't care about, or about characters that, you know what, this is all going to be erased anyway. You know,
like they did with Death of Superman.
Oh man.
Yeah. and by the way, Barry Allen's back. I don't know if you've.
You know what? Everybody's back.
Yeah, they are.
Everybody's back. Death
But
has
you know
no
what?
sting.
They're telling the stories now. They're retelling the successful stories with not enough time between them anymore to give us breathing space between the next retelling. I mean, ever since Nora Allen was created, we've been getting Etta Flash Rex every 6 months. It's always about his mother. He's got to go back and save her.
It's like, how many flashpoints are we going to have?
Exactly.
How many crises are we going to have? Like, it seems like they reboot their universe every 10 years.
And you know, it's kind of funny because Death of Superman kind of snuck up on you. You know, they were very clever with that one because it kind of started innocuous, and then suddenly when they got close to the final fight, you're like, wait a minute, they're going to kill Superman? It's actually pretty clever.
Quick. Sorry to interrupt. I don't want to lose super chats like from the queue or whatever. So thank you, Jason, for the $2. He says simp it. Jason's always trying to be the main simp for whatever reason. Gils Walker, thank you for the $2 Australia. Love the drop rare time to change avatars, which is awesome. Happy that you are happy with your drop rare from Adam.
Glad that finally made it. It's been sitting there for so long.
Yeah, I haven't, and this is like a cardinal sin to admit, but I haven't read The Death of Superman.
I mean, you're not missing a huge event. It was just more like a 90s kind of novelty.
He got better.
Yeah. I noticed because, you know, when I got
really
into
bad.
it like 10 years ago, all of a sudden Superman's a thing. And people are like, yeah, the
You get
death
the-
of, and I was like, I'm
And
pretty
you
sure
get the
that's
four.
for Kal-El.
I thought the cyborg was cool, man. That Dan Jurgens cyborg.
Yeah, and speaking of original, that Dan Jurgens cyborg, you know, comes from the story that was completely stolen from the Fantastic Four.
Which one?
Cyborg Superman was Hank Henshaw. Hank Henshaw was the leader of 4 space explorers in DC who went off and got hit by cosmic rays, and they all 4 came back with superpowers in Superman titles.
Yeah, you're right.
This guy's good. This guy is good.
Oh, the big two have stolen from each other for decades. So it's good fun at this point.
Well, Wolverine, to answer Wolverine's question, the Death of Superman was sort of the epitome and the incarnation of the 90s speculator scene. It was like, if anything that personified that, it was the Death of Superman with the black cover.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
You know, do you know how many people call the shop and like, hey, I've got like a Death of Superman with like the white bag. Yeah,
it's worth like less than a penny.
You know, I can give you $250 for it.
Not even that, probably. You can. Like, you have to pay you to take it.
Yeah.
I opened my black bag one the day that Christopher Reeve died because I took the armband out of it and wore it that day.
Yeah, it did come with an armband.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
That's true.
And it was
I feel about that.
a newspaper clipping, an armband, and what else?
Oh, I can't remember.
And then the book has like a monument, like a granite kind of cover in the inside.
But the cool thing about the storytelling technique that was used in that, if you pay attention to the issues that led up to it, if you go like 4 issues before the Death of Superman actually occurs, that issue had like 4 panels per page, and then the next issue had 3 panels per page, and then the next issue was a panel per page, and then it was like double page spreads. It was just the pictures got bigger as it got closer to the event.
Dan Jurgens did that whole thing, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
God, man, what a boss! Like,
Man, I don't.
seriously, like just from an art standpoint, like to me personally, Superman is an incredibly boring character. Like least favorite superhero ever. I know, blasphemy. Look who you talking to. But the artwork on that book was so fucking fantastic that I was entertained, even though I don't really care. Like I'm watching these events unfold like Uatu, like, okay, yep, it's happening. But the artwork, it was beautiful.
He also did the 4 graphic novels of the Doomsday, Superman Doomsday. Remember?
No, off the top of my head, no.
Where after the cyborg threw Doomsday into the void, he ends up on the original planet that created him, and he starts wreaking havoc. And the cyborg is there, and Darkseid is there, and Superman has to go and have one last showdown and get over his PTSD with him.
Nope.
And they show you the origin of Doomsday and how they engineered him.
Okay. Nope.
It's a cool book. Dan Jurgens did the whole thing.
Yeah, they kept throwing the baby Doomsday out into the wastelands.
Yeah, and they keep starting all over again because they keep tearing them apart. Like, go outside and get some skin, and we start all over again.
I'm still hung
So,
up
Luke,
on
when
there
you
being a
say the
black
shop,
facade.
Huh?
When you say the shop, do you run a comic shop? Luke, am I the last one to know this?
I work in my LCS. Like my
okay, gotcha.
For 34 years, I've been shopping there since I was 10, and I work there on the weekends. So
I love that. I love that.
And speaking of stealing originality, and we're on the death of Superman, Doomsday, the character, if you look in your Overstreet price guide, you'll find his first appearance was actually in Silver Surfer. There's a Silver Surfer cover that says "The Coming of the Doomsday Man," and he's coming out of the streets, and he's wrapped in these green bandages with the goggles on. Looks exactly like Doomsday coming out of the. And this is like a '60s or early '70s book.
Wow!
And how did they get away with that?
Nobody remembered.
Nobody cared.
Nobody cared. I mean, come on, Sabretooth was a Flash villain before he ever showed up in Marvel, so it goes both ways.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait,
you got to know your own IP.
Liefeld didn't create his own Sabretooth. What was his name? Saber, I think his name. Tooth or whatever.
Toothy.
You know, I have to say one thing though about Superman. I did enjoy after Crisis and Byrne did Superman. I enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that run of Superman.
Oh yeah,
I thought that kind of reconstruction of Superman was great. I really enjoyed it.
The Byrne one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, the Man of Steel, right?
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yep, I have the.
Is that where they got the whole 1-inch force field around him? That's why his clothes never got fucked up. Is that where that came from?
Yeah, basically Byrne's idea was that Superman's one super ability was he was the world's most powerful psychic, so that he could see through things because he had clairvoyance. He could hear faster than sound. Like a gunshot across the city, the bullet sound's not going to reach your ears physically until long after the person's bleeding out on the sidewalk. But Superman could hear the bullet ahead of time and get there in time. That would be clairaudience. He had telekinesis. He had levitation. It was all pyrokinesis. And he didn't know that he was psychic, so he thought everything had a physical manifestation about him. But it was all psychically based, every single power.
Interesting. Okay.
I wasn't mad at the Brian Azzarello, Jim Lee Superman. I wasn't mad at that. I guess I'm the only one.
Artwork.
I'm the only one.
The trunkless Superman?
Yeah.
I wasn't mad at it.
It's just Brian Azzarello writing Superman. It's like, okay, well, that's an odd pairing.
Sure. I know it's an odd pairing. There's is a little deconstructive, and it was Jim Lee art. It was anyways. I'll leave that out.
Well, see, I'm actually kind of irritated that DC has taken all of my favorite artists because I never get to see them draw anything I like to read anymore, and it pisses me off.
I hope Daniel Warren Johnson comes back. I mean, I know his Wonder Woman stint was awesome, but I need another book like Murder Falcon, and I need that.
I didn't.
You're missing out. As somebody who loves metal music,
yeah,
that is the core.
Out on that, like we had the ash can in the store, and I think Gabe might have bought that. Our buddy Gabe in the chat, Gabe Gully, he's a regular at the shop, and he might have been the one to buy that ash can. Anyway, yeah, I missed out on that one. Totally missed it, so I'll have to look for it. Check it out, really.
Gabe,
it's my favorite.
a million exclamation points. He says, "I bought it." Right there. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Took us
My dude. Yeah.
So what other kind of points or thoughts do you guys have on originality? Frankie, you've been kind of quiet.
My thoughts on originality?
Yeah. Being original, writing original shit.
Well, it all sparks from a thought. That's one. Jot it down if you have a thought. Start there, and then, like I said, I heard something a long time ago. I forgot who the writers were, but they said those two words of "what if." If you get stuck to, build on what if to create, maybe keep climbing that ladder to where you're going. And like I said, flow writing is good. Stream of consciousness writing is good because later you could take out what's not good, what you could use later on. But if it's coming out of that imagination stream of, that stream, that flow, you could, I think you come up with something original from that.
Yeah. Take in everything because, and from all different areas, because your brain will make connections up between all those things. And that's where a story comes from. I mean, if you're always focused on one kind of thing, then that's what you're going to write, but it's going to come out one dimensional because it's going to be that one tunnel that you've been digging through all this time. I've got a story I'm working on that, comes from my having read the autobiography of Edgar Allan Poe, works by Edgar Rice Burroughs and H.P. Lovecraft, and myths about the Mothman. And I was like, what if this is all tied together? What if, Edgar Allan Poe died because he saw the Mothman alien creature crash? What if H.P. Lovecraft saw the same thing, and that's why he draws these chitinous creatures in the Silver Key, and Edgar Rice Burroughs saw the same thing. That's why he's got the four-armed green guys in his Mars novels. Because you suddenly see all these parallels in other things, and you're like, what if this is parallel because it is the same thing? That's the kind of thing I look for. I look for, crossovers between things that shouldn't cross.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a decent
things that could be tied together, things that are similar enough that you could make connections. I got it.
Yeah, I think that because so far my writing is mostly coming from dreams. So it's obviously inspired by something at some point that I've experienced, because dreams aren't just coming out of nowhere. I'm not like, there's not like some like deity, other being or whatever that's like pumping shit into my brain at night. It's usually based on stressors that get blown out of proportion, fears, worries. Movies. I've had a lot of like really weird moments lately in dreams that have been coming, like movies or TV shows that I watch as I'm falling asleep, and it'll just randomly interject itself in there.
I had a nightmare about Tom Cruise last night.
Did you?
I just remember his face and waking up in a sweat and a really beating heart, and I was like, "What the fuck was that?"
Was he trying to get you to join Scientology? Was that why?
I don't know. I just had this image, is kind of, when you have like an after image of just like one snapshot from the dream. Yes. I just have that face of his where he's like, laughing, the meme laugh. And I know he was like chasing me or something, because I felt like I was gonna have a heart attack. Like my heart was beating so fast. And I'm like, what the fuck was Tom Cruise doing to me? Like,
he was alpha mailing you,
I guess, or he's standing on a box trying to kick me. I mean, really, I think I just watched Days of Thunder, so maybe the chasing thing. Like, I watched Days of Thunder. Yeah, that's got to be where it came from.
Yeah, it's weird where those kinds of thoughts can kind of percolate from, because I'll have stuff that I watched maybe 3-4 years ago that I barely remember anything of, and in passing like 2 or 3 days ago, someone will be like, "Oh yeah, you remember this movie?" And all I can remember is one scene. But then, days later, I'm going to sleep, and then I wake up and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I was in that scene and it was fucking terrible. Like, why did that happen?" And I have to think back and go, 3 days ago, somebody referenced something from 5 years ago, and that's where it came from. And it just like devolved into something. And so I'm sure that it's at least one original because my memory is shit. So whatever actually happened in whatever movie, book, whatever that I saw is probably not at all what I dreamed. It's, I don't know. Dreams are fucked up, dude. I don't get it.
Yeah, Rick Veitch has made a good run at doing comics about dreams, his dreams. Winsor McKay was big on that too.
Kurosawa made a whole movie about it too.
Yeah.
Well, I think the hardest part is remembering them when you wake up, because you have such a small window from when you wake up to when you're like fully coherent for you to capture what it was that you dreamed with enough detail. And like Luke and I talk about this all the time when I was talking about wanting to add stuff into my dark horror anthology. And I was telling him, I was just bitching to him one day. And I was like, dude, I had this really fucked up dream. It's been staying with me all day. And I was like, I can't get past it. And he's like, well, what was it? And I don't remember it. I just have the feeling. And he's like, well, can you remember what it centered around? And I was giving him like 2 or 3 words because that's all I could think of. And then he just sat there and he goes, well, why was he there? Well, what was happening? Was there anyone else there? Was he wearing anything? And the next thing you know, like I have an outline for a story. And I was like, holy fuck, we're going to do a short story. I was like, oh my gosh, I remember enough of this dream. We're doing a short story. But like I tried for the entire day to remember it by myself and hit Stonewall because all I had was the overwhelming anxiety that it left behind. And so I think if you're into writing dreams, and I noticed that as I started paying attention to them more and writing them down more, I started waking up and being able to recall more of what I dreamed the night before. It's like training your brain to pull that stuff back out and not just forget it and move on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, sorry, another divergent. I'm not even on topic at all tonight. Whatever. I don't even care.
We're trying to have an episode where you're the one that derails us. Since
It's
we're the
only, you know what? We're on episode 17, and I'm not joining in the derailment. I'm just the one actively pushing it this time. I think I did pretty good. I made it 17 episodes.
Good job.
Metz wants to say, did you guys cover divergent approaches?
And what is divergent approaches?
Anybody have any thoughts on that before he hits up in the chat and explains?
I don't have any insight into divergent approaches.
So
can you define it first?
I don't. I am not sure.
Big
yeah,
voice.
Matt, put in the chat what you mean.
What is the definition?
Looking. Yeah, he's probably typing at me right now. Look at me. I'm just killing.
I just saw Mission Impossible 2 today before coming downstairs, so I've got Tom Cruise in the brain too. Thanks. I'll probably dream tonight.
Oh, I hope you have a dream tonight. I think it'd be great.
I'm just wondering what happened that I nearly had a heart attack from. So
yeah, I don't know. If Tom Cruise showed up in my dreams, I think I'd probably have a heart attack too. Though not for anything good, but because I think he's psychotic and out of his mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Scientology will do to you.
Finding solutions to complicated questions by using open-minded solutions. So open-minded solutions, what is open-minded? I'm sorry, I keep asking, but what do you mean open-minded? Like, as opposed to what? Like,
I thought I was living life open-minded.
That feels like, to me, that feels just like brainstorming, like overall.
Like stream of consciousness?
Yeah, almost, because he's finding solutions to complicated questions by using open-minded solutions. The only thing I could think of that would actually mean if we're going to... You got to talk to me like I'm 5.
Well, I'm going to Google. Google
there we
says
go.
divergent thinking is a thought process or method used to generate creative ideas by exploring many possible solutions. It typically occurs in a spontaneous, free-flowing, nonlinear manner, such that many ideas are generated in emergent cognitive fashion. And I still have no idea.
Brainstorming.
That is brainstorming. Literally brainstorming.
Stream of consciousness.
Okay. Yeah, so it is. All right. It's brainstorming and so let's talk a little bit about brainstorming then, because I think a lot of people put brainstorming in a weirdly confining box, which is so opposite of what you need to do. Because I've sat down, and this is coming from a military background, but I've sat down with a lot of like younger kids. I say kids, they're grown-ass adults, they're in the military, but we sit down with a lot of these younger airmen, and they bring up points of things that they don't like that's going on. They're like, this is a huge problem that we have within our unit. And I go, okay, well, how would you solve it? And they go, well, I don't know. That's your job. And it's like, well, let's brainstorm. And they go, well, I don't know what we can do legally. I was like, I don't give a shit what we can do legally. Like, how would you solve this? You are the one in charge. Fix it. How would you fix it? And so many people get so bogged down in trying to make sure that whatever solution they put out for a specific problem is going to be the end solution that will solve everything, that they end up not actually brainstorming and they hit a wall. Mm-hmm. So it kind of goes back to me talking about my writer's block, where I don't write anything because I'm so worried about producing something perfect.
I mean, I don't know if this counts, but in my dealings with, because I've learned a lot about Frege being a partner with him in this, this is a whole other part of his personality I didn't know because I've never been in this position with him. And I found out that when I try to change what he so rigidly is set on, when I'm on the phone with him, he will not let me finish, right? He just like, no. But what's interesting, he's like a cyclops, right? You got to trick him, like Odysseus. So I figured out that if you write him an email and you write out in plain terms exactly what you're, big case for what you want, he will mostly 90% of the time go, yeah, you made your case. He won't let me do it on the phone, but he let me do it in writing.
Well, that's because he can read it on his own time, and he can process it, think about it.
I as someone who has talked to you extensively off air, I am going to say that sometimes talking to you, because you have such a clear thought of what's in your head, you will rapid fire information, and then people that feel like they're dumber than you take a little bit longer to digest it than what you give them. And so I can see why typing it out and being like, okay, it's typed out. If I have to read the same sentence 4 times, I can, and Will never know because he's not here.
Dan's no dummy, but what it is, though, is that if he hears something that's like really radical, he'll like respond to it really quickly, go, no, right? And like, I don't want to hear that. Shut up. Okay. But then if I write it out, like where he has to read it and like he can't interrupt me, he'll be like, oh, I like that. Because he can't tell me to shut up in the middle.
That's what it is you need, because Dan has the compulsive need to get to the end of the email. And so that's how you need to address it now. I'm just going to give you all of the information in the email. And then when you get to the end, then you can tell me it sucks.
Right.
But he's not going to stop reading it halfway through, because he's going to be like, yeah, but look at how much more there still is. So what if but when you're talking, he doesn't know how much more you've got to say.
That's how I figured out how to trick him. Like I said, Odysseus and the Cyclops.
That's fair. That's it. It all comes down to how people digest information. So I know you and when I was talking about dumber than you, I was talking about me. Like when we talk, I feel like sometimes I need to just, okay, so you said this. Does that mean this? It's like we're going back 30 minutes in the conversation. This one word you said, I don't know what that means. So we got to start over from here.
Guys, I'm going to have to bail. I appreciate the time. Thank you for letting me on.
Later, RJ.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on, RJ. Make sure you go check out his links for Amazon.
Take care, RJ.
Good night, everybody.
See ya.
Night.
Actually, I remember one of the frequent fights I got with my ex-girlfriend was like, what's his name? Billy Bob in Bad Santa with the little kid. He's like, are you fucking with me? It would be, she would pretend like she didn't understand a word I just said. And I'm like, I'm speaking plain English. How could you not understand it? You're smarter than me. You have a high IQ. She's like, I don't know. I'm just dumb. Like, no, you're not. Don't use that. I know your IQ.
Oh, no, we lost somebody else.
No, he said that he had to go in the chat.
Oh, bummer. Yeah. Okay. Oh, he's back. Do you have to leave?
I do have to leave. That was an accident. I was trying to...
I was like, normally they give me more than a minute in private chat to address this. Damn, Adam.
Yeah, no, I know. I said it in the regular Twitter chat field. I realized, and I was like, I know. And I went up to switch from comments to private chat and hit log in. There it is. That's I know. It's like I'm still running StreamYard after time 40.
It's okay, Adam.
But thank you guys for having me on and being here. I love this group. John, good to meet you tonight. And
good to meet you too, Adam.
I'm glad you got your drop there. Yeah, well, take care.
Yes. Make sure that you go back to 8th if you haven't already, and definitely get on the mailing list for the Kill Journal. It is going to be fucking amazing.
Yes.
Zero recommend.
Nice. Thank you.
And yes, Wolverine, I have used that. I have actually said, "Are you being obtuse?" to her. I did say that to my ex. Like, "Are you being obtuse? You're just being obtuse." He's like, "What's that?" Bullshit. You know what that is.
Are you being intentionally obtuse? I hate that question, by the way. I've had people ask me that before, and every time they ask me that, I was like, well, would you like me to punch you in the face now or later? Because it's about how I'm feeling after that question.
Yeah, like, nah. She was a funny woman.
Funny woman.
I mean, she was dating me, so she had to be some kind of funny woman.
She did. That's true. That's very, very true. Oh, well, guys, we've been going for an hour and 40, and it is just hit midnight for me. Does anybody have any other kind of topics or avenues that they wanted to go into when it comes to originality, or really just kind of writing in general? I'm putting y'all on the spot.
I think we covered it probably, but I think people should just write their story. Like, get it out there, and then go back to check to see if you're copying something else. See if you can tweak it to be different if you have. But, remember, there's only really 5 stories. And,
And
try to have fun.
a certain set of emotions as well.
Right. Mm-hmm. Papa Kinesu, I'm so sorry. We've been going for an hour and 40 minutes. I'm sorry that you're getting here so late, but the replay will be up on the same link. Definitely go and check it out, because this is a good fun panel for sure. Tight. Like, you haven't gotten booted. I mean, it's been a pretty decent day for you.
Well, you don't really throw out much meat anymore, so you're getting boring.
Oh,
there's strike one. There's strike one.
I know. See, if I wasn't 1.5 margaritas in, that would have done it, but.
Because you used to be much more active, and you would like put yourself out there more. So it'd be plenty of places that can kind of stab you in the hand, but you don't reach anymore.
Yeah, I know. I got bit a little too much. So. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I've oppressed you to that degree.
As Jason put it, Shae is margaritaed out. Nice, and I'm apparently boring like the Iliad. Thanks, Mets.
Where's Odin? Where's Odin when you need him? He'd start talking as soon as you heard the Iliad.
I know,
It'd be like a wind up.
We'd go for another 3 hours, and
Achilles in books 7 through 8.
I'd just start drinking straight from the vodka bottle at that point. Just be like, fuck it.
Like right now, he's probably sitting in his writing room, and his ears perk up, and
his ears are ringing.
Somebody mentioned the Iliad somewhere. Where are they?
He has to put on his costume and fly at like super speed to give a lecture about the Iliad.
Yes! Oh my gosh, we need to make that a comic.
You have called my name.
Greek mythology. Oh my gosh.
So, by the pigeon.
Yeah, exactly. That's why, Frankie, you look in a mirror and you say, Iliad, 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 and he appears behind you.
Oh my gosh,
it's like Candyman.
Candyman, Beetlejuice.
He's not a little guy either. Like, if all of a sudden he appered behind you, that'd actually be a little terrifying. Because
and he has a copy of Elysian
I'm covering
Fields.
my mirror with a blanket right now.
I'm here to hand deliver Elysian Fields to you.
Yeah, he will, and he'll be real sweet. And he'll post her a picture. It'll be great.
Other than he just appear in your house at 2 a.m. when you're taking a piss or something,
Don't be talking about the Iliad at 3 a.m. while you're taking a piss.
Yeah, that's it. Watch him come in right now.
Watch this now.
I wish he would just come right. He goes, I heard the Iliad, and I felt I had to come to its defense.
I was summoned.
I got to do his he has a very when he gets talking about the Iliad, his head goes down, and he starts looking at the camera in a certain way. So. Mike Odin, he's a funny guy. Go back Elysian Fields or the Royal Rumble Hercules book he's doing. It looks like the Royal Rumble. What's it called? The Royal Rumble book he's doing?
I don't remember his other book yet. I've only seen Elysian Fields.
The sequel to that.
Man, Gabe.
Elysian Fields 2.
It's like he's at his table. I just have an image. He's at a table eating with his wife, and he just stops with like food in his mouth and like looks up like a dog who kind of heard like a loud, siren like in the distance. Like Iliad.
Can we need to do a Red Valkyrie collective, and it needs to be all of these like ridiculous stories that have happened while we've been doing writing prose. So like the pigeon will have its own little mini series in there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that could be a Red Valkyrie Indiegogo launch.
It'll really be a launch for just one patch, and it'll be like, oh, you can add on the pigeon.
And you're financing a third of the bill at like Round Table Pizza. Basically.
Oh my gosh. All right, guys. Well, I think this is as good a time as any to wrap. But let's go back around the room with the people that are still here and go ahead and talk about your projects once more. Mr. John Hervey, take it away.
John Hervey. You can find me on Twitter at Beyond Time Inc. My project is Black Tiger: Legacy of Fury. It's a 172-page graphic novel of kung fu and intrigue. Pick it up; you won't be disappointed. And it's already produced, so you can get the soft cover now.
Very, very good, Mr. Will Perdomo.
I am Will Perdomo, as you just said. Sulla Felix 3 at Twitter. Excuse me. I got it right. I am the co-writer of Black Flag with the amazing, magisterial, cyclopean Dan Fraga.
Oh boy, Fraga, boom.
And we're almost there. We're about 185, almost 200. But we have the 0.5 book. We've got the recolored Matt Yackey high resolution poster that's going in every order. We've got options to get ass titty shirts in whatever style you'd like.
I was first to get one.
And the book is proceeding quickly, and we should have something for you in a little bit, actually. So stay tuned.
It's exciting.
Oh, yeah.
That's so cool. I can't wait. I really can't wait to just walk around sporting a shirt that says AAT and then go to like some military function completely forgetting where I am and have somebody go, oh, what's that mean? And be like, oh.
I actually like the pink one. I like the 80s pink one.
That's the one that I got. I got the 80s pink one because I was like, that is appropriate. And I'm absolutely going to wear the shit out of it.
Mm-hmm. And we got don't forget the Rob Willis cover as well, obviously,
yes.
in line art or color.
Dan has gotten me to back his campaign so many times, seriously.
Also colored by Yackey, so.
Absolutely.
He's such a beast. God, I love his work. What? Oh.
Yeah.
I am Death Metal Hero on Twitter and Instagram and this wonderful thing we call YouTube. I host the sing-along of Doom and mangle songs. And sometimes I get drunk while I do it, so come hang out, sing along, scream along with me. I'm also doing art for Shae's horror anthology. I'm working on a cyberpunk story of my own. Stay tuned. Yeah.
Thank you, Todd's Truth and Wise Guys. Appreciate it.
Yes. And Wolverine, who got the second, he was second to get an assassination.
Oh, thank you, Wolverine. Does he have a shirt on?
You just gotta hang it on the wall and look at it. You don't wear a shirt.
He's not gonna wear it. He's just going to like hold it up during live streams to show that he was supporting Dan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They put a shirt, but he doesn't wear shirts. Bullshit.
What he's doing, right, is he's gonna take that to a tattoo place and then have them just tattoo the AAT across his chest, and they'll be like,
I'm sure somebody who's going to.
I'm sure somebody will. It's so sad. Frankie.
Right. I'm sorry, I forgot. Tomorrow, I'm gonna have Jason from Unhinged Entertainment on my channel, and we're gonna talk about all kinds of fun stuff tomorrow at 9.
Nice. Make sure you definitely tune into that one. That'll be fun for sure.
Good old Frankie.
Frankie, your turn, sir.
Through the Woods is available on Indiegogo. hardcover graphic novel. Got murder, mystery, and the supernatural. And then we have Ghostly Man on Howling Hills, which you'll find via City of Venus on Indiegogo. It's in one of the perk sections. And there's only 12 of those left. And then they're gone.
Heck yeah. I got mine. I was super excited for it because Vinny was like, they're going fast. And I was like, Vinny, I can't get it for a few days. You better put one aside for me. And he goes, if we get down to one, I'll just take the tier down. I was like, thanks, bro. I'll let you know when I'm back. But no, I got mine. It looks awesome. I'm very excited to sit down and read it. I'm going to try and get a lot of my my buddies to that have kids to try and back it because I think that it'd be right up their alley.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Last minute question from Tony. Is Frankie related to Vinny? Frankie, would you like to answer that?
Yeah. if the name ends in a vowel, they're related to me. Nah, yeah, he's my brother.
Yeah, but before the stream, I was like, I'm not backing that book unless I get it signed by Frankie. That's who I care about.
All right, you got it.
Sign it. Damn it.
I sign it.
And of course, I am Shae the Red. Thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out. If you have not already, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to Red Valkyrie. I've been talking with a lot of different creators recently, and I've got some cool stuff in store for us for October. It's going to be super awesome. Also, I'm going to announce for the people that are watching right now, if you have a one-page story that you would like to get read by people of our panel and have us kind of discuss live, please, by all means, send it my way. I am going to be making a post on Twitter about it. You can send it to redvalkyrieyt@gmail.com. And we're going to do that for our grand season finale for episodes 20 and potentially 19 if we get enough submissions. So please feel free to send stuff into us if you got specific writers you would like present for your piece. Let me know that as well. If you want people that you don't want present, like if you're terrified that Will's going to rip it apart, I'm not going to make a promise. Will and Luke have been here every single episode. I expect both of them to be there for both of those. So you're probably going to get your asses ripped apart. But, you know, solidarity. I'll throw something in the mix too and then have Will tell me how much I suck. But yeah, definitely get us whatever your entries are. And also a little bit of shameless self-promotion. Please go and back Absolute. I've been the editor for Jason, and trust me, fantastic book that you definitely are going to want to get in on. Tony just posted the Gmail in the chat. That is correct, Tony. Please make sure that you send me whatever you got that way. And while you're at it, go ahead and get on that mailing list for the Kill Journal. I've got a 7-page short story because I suck at sticking to guidelines. So you get an extra page of story out of me, and it's going to be fucking epic. It's Marty's backstory. So make sure that you go and check that out. And thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out with us. It's been fun. We will check you all next Sunday. See you later.
Fucking Frankie's original.